Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today, and only today, I am going to finally be giving y'all my full character roster prediction for the Bleach Rebirth of Souls video game. Now, for those of you that have been hiding under a rock for I don't know how long, Bleach has announced a new video game called Rebirth of Souls. This video game is going to be releasing, we don't know when, but it was announced not too long ago, earlier this summer, and since then we've been getting character trailers almost basically weekly. And as this video is published and maybe even seen, or as you're watching, there's probably multiple character trailers that have been published that I might have also just not might have that I have also covered and reacted to. So definitely check those out. But today we are specifically looking at characters that I think are going to be in the game, if not characters that I just want to see in the game. A roster that I felt was a little bit more realistic as to what I foresee for this game, considering that this game is covering a good amount, and there's certain characters that give me the idea that we're going to go past Final Getsuga Tensho with Ichigo in his Mugon form, if you want to call it that. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight into the character roster, explain every single bit of it, and let you guys know why I put certain characters in the categories or spots that they are in. All right, so here we go. This is the character roster screen. Hopefully my face cam isn't covering it, all of it. I wasn't sure where to put sort of the face cam, but this is basically the gist of it. Actually, I think I'm going to put the face cam in the middle. Okay, so you know that there's a versus where my face cam is at, but this is basically the amount of characters that I have here set for a possible character roster for Bleach Rebirth of Souls. I believe this is 59 characters, if I'm not mistaken. But we're gonna go straight into it. We're gonna go with the first set of characters that I believe are going to be shown up from. And I'm let me preface all these characters by saying these are characters that I feel like were very pivotal to the story of Bleach, and because we are covering the story of Bleach in this video game, I feel like characters that only sort of mattered in fights and things of that nature, since also this is also a fighting game. So if the fights didn't matter in the story, I just felt like these characters probably weren't going to be in the roster. So with that being said, we're going to go straight into the Karakura Town arc, the very beginning of Bleach, when Ichigo gets his Soul Reaper powers, and boom, these are the characters that I see from that arc in the game. And let's start out with the main one, obviously. Let's go from, well, I'll just name them all down. We got Rukia, Ichigo, Uryu, Orihime, Chad. We have Grand Fisher, Byakuya, and Renji. Now, when it comes to Ichigo, Rukia, and Orihime, Uryu, and Chad, those are basically no-brainers, right? They're like the main cast of heroes that you see basically throughout the series. The only one that maybe is questionable here that I put regardless was Grand Fisher. Byakuya and Renji, whether they were in this arc or in the they're in the game. We've seen already gameplay of Byakuya. We've seen Renji get his butt kicked in gameplay trailers and also in the game. He is shown. So we know that these characters for sure are going to be in the game because they've all been basically showcased. Grand Fisher, though, the only reason why I put Grand Fisher though, and why it's kind of bit questionable is there is a chance that that character might not actually be in the final roster, and that character might just be a story boss. There are instances in video games where you just have a specific story boss that you're just going to fight for that specific story moment, and they're not playable characters. Now, I don't know how often that actually happens nowadays in anime fighting games, especially arena fighters. It just seems like you kind of go down the line of playable characters for fights that you do in the story mode, because obviously those are playable and those characters makes the most sense to have. But Grand Fisher felt like a character that kind of makes sense. I don't really see any other hollow being in this sort of roster other than Grand Fisher. And the only reason why I say that is because I feel like a move set for Grand Fisher would be interesting, considering that, his holified form is a little bit more personal towards Ichigo, so you can have some fun dialogue there, as well as, he does technically have an awakening when Ishin shows up and reveals himself. But Grand Fisher has an awakening, then he gets one-shotted by Ishin. But either way, you know what I mean? He gets beaten up by Ichigo, comes back, has another form, You know, that you could easily have that fit into the mechanics of this video game, where that could be his awakening. The only downside of that is that he is very large of a character, and so I don't know if this is going to be like Tenkaichi in the sense that large characters are going to be playable or not. That's why he's kind of an iffy character. If he's not in the game, I wouldn't really be upset, but I think it'd be neat to have him in the game. So those are all Karakuta Town characters. Obviously, like I said, the squad on the left is obvious. Byakuya and Renji do appear at the very end of Karakuta Town, leading into the Soul Society arc. And so it makes sense to have Renji and Byakuya there. Also, it's just those are like staple characters. Pretty obvious that they're going to be there. Now, this is where a big chunk of characters actually come from, because obviously a lot of the characters get introduced in this following arc, which is the Soul Society arc, where Rukia gets captured. Ichigo and the team have to go and rescue her. And all those characters that I foresee in this game are here. So I'm going to go down the list. Straight obvious, I put basically almost, if not all the captains of the court guard squad in this. I put Mayuri, I put Soifon, I put Sajin, I put Aizen, I put Tosin, Toshiro, Kenpachi, Gin, Shunsui, Ukitake. I put all of the captains. And the only reason why I did that is because I don't feel like any of these captains don't have moments in the anime that I feel like would be moments in the game, that if they really were covering of this game to an extensive amount towards the end of the Arrancar arc where Ichigo fights Aizen, then these characters all have moments. I mean, like Yoruichi also on the left, we've seen gameplay footage of her. I wasn't 100% sure whether she was going to be playable, but at the same time, she's so popular that why wouldn't you have her playable? And if you have her playable, it only makes sense to have Soifon playable. Obviously in the Soul Society arc as well, you have Uryu facing off with Mayuri. Mayuri's a lock. You also have Kenpachi obviously having a face-off with Ichigo. That's a lock. The only questionable characters is, I don't know if that I would say questionable, but characters that I just feel like I put in there because they're not only popular, but I think would be fun in the game. I put Kenpachi's lieutenant. I keep forgetting her name, but she's, if you know, you know. I put her in the game because she was playable before in other games, and I think she would have a fun moveset to have, and she's a really, mysterious lieutenant, and I think it would be interesting to have her in the game. Obviously, I put Ikkaku and Yumi Chika because those are, the two main characters that the team faces off prior to Kenpachi. They're like the two mini bosses before the big boss, with it being Kenpachi. Obviously, Ichigo has a big battle with Ikkaku, and so to not have that there, it would be Yumi Chika. I think is also just an interesting character. He shows up a lot. A lot of these Soul Reaper. Obviously, you can't have every single Soul Reaper in this video game, but I think those are the notable ones. Obviously, Rangiku is a notable lieutenant for Toshiro. She plays a valuable role, and also, I mean, who doesn't want to play as Rangiku? And then you have Izuru, which I put in there because, well, I just think Izuru would be kind of a lock. Considering that Izuru is also seems like a interesting character. Also, his moveset would be interesting with his Zanpakuto. I think it plays and I think he has us like a good fight where you could put him up against a boss fight in the Arrancar arc. If I'm not mistaken, he could be a notable character. Another character that is very much so a lock for me is Hisagi, Tosin's lieutenant at the time. I think he's 100% a lock because he has moments in the anime. He's very popular also. He's not like a character that's not without his fans. Hisagi fans are definitely out there, and I'm sure they're going to want to be playing as him. Tosin's going to go really hard. That's one character I'm actually excited to play as. I don't know if I've seen Tosin that much. Obviously, I've only played one Bleach game, but I feel like his moveset would be interesting. Gin, Tosin, and Aizen are basically locks, and I may have put them I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say Aizen for sure. We've seen him more than once, okay? And it's very notable that I put Aizen with his glasses on and he looks all friendly. It's notable that I put that Aizen because I think this Aizen is pre-Soul Society Aizen before the reveal. And then obviously one character that you don't see here that may or may not make an appearance is Captain Yamamoto. Now, Captain Yamamoto doesn't actually play that big of a... I mean, he's in the background, right? And there's that scene where Ukitake and Shunsui, face him off when Ichigo is rescuing Rukia. But whether or not he becomes playable, he's just not that pivotal of a character in the sense that you would put him playable right away. One character that I wasn't 100% sure of, I had to think about it, but obviously he was playable in other games, and also like why wouldn't he be playable if he becomes part of the team? Is Ganju. Now, I don't know if people don't like Ganju. I don't know how people feel about Ichigo's cuz, but Ganju does feel like he would have an interesting moveset as well. I've seen him in other games, and I think he definitely a lock for a character roster. Urahara is definitely one that I would love to. If we're having Yoruichi, I feel like having Urahara there would be fun, especially considering that Ichigo trains with both of them before he enters Soul Society and when he's in the Soul Society. So I think having Urahara there would be fun. Obviously, you can't really do his Bonkai, but I think having him there as just like as a mysterious character with an interesting moveset would be cool. And I'm also curious to see. They might not put him in the. He might just be in the game and cutscenes and things of that nature for the story. He might not be playable. This is a character that I want to be playable. I think it would be fun to put him there. He's been playable, at least, this form of Urahara, like in the early Soul Society, late Karakura Town stuff. I think that Urahara should be playable. Whether or not he is, well, we're going to have to wait and find out and see. But I think it would be fun to see Benihime in the small amounts that we see, his Zanpakuto against Ichigo when they're training and that sorts of the other. It's, again, I bring him up only because, like, I'm not sure how they're going to do, like, awakenings for him. Like, is he going to have an awakening? Is it just going to be his Shikai and he just gets to use Benihime instead of just, like, a regular? Like, that's probably what makes the most sense. But whether or not they want to go that route, is going to dictate whether or not they want to put the character in the game. But you guys let me know how you feel about Urahara, if you think he should be in the game. But these are the big chunk of characters. Obviously, as you can see, we're leaving out some other characters that we're going to get filled in the Arrancar arc. And obviously, I have a good amount of DLC characters, which those DLC characters, I just put them in there in waves of like what I think would make. Because I feel like having a 4-season DLC list kind of makes sense, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? I feel like it just is what it is. As much as we hate it, it is what it is. When it comes to a DLC, we have like multiple seasons of it, and that's what kind of keeps games alive. And I just think having 4 of them for this game kind of makes sense. Now, let's move on straight to a Arrancar arc, and let's see what characters I put there. So a lot of them kind of are obvious. Main ones being Grimmjow. Most of the basically, I didn't put all of the Espada, but I try to put the most important ones. And there's a couple in here that might be a little controversial. I know you're looking at the screen right now and you're thinking, what the hell are you doing? Okay, the obvious ones are obviously Grimmjow, Ulquiorra, Noitora. You have, I forgot this guy's name. Saizalapro. I know I pronounced that wrong, but he's obvious there. I know a lot of people don't like Yami and wouldn't, but he just seems like a lock to me. I don't see why not. This is kind of like the Vegeta and Nappa, if you will, of like the Bleach games. It just seems like a lock to have them there. These two on the bottom are the ones that I think people are going to be curious about, and obviously it's Oman. I believe his name's Oman, and then you have Aroniero. I believe that's how you say it. I probably butchered their names. Now, hear me out. This is why I put these Espadas specifically here as just a main roster, okay? Now, keep in mind, there's still spots in DLC, so you might see one Espada that's not on here that you're just like, what the hell? That could pop up in a DLC here or there, but I put them for base game because they do have, like I said, I went off of the story, and I went off of which characters sort of serve the story beats and would make sense if you're playing the Bleach Rebirth of Souls story, right? If you're playing it, if Rukia becomes a playable character and you get to play like certain parts like that, like kind of like the Storm games, then she has a moment where she faces one of these Espada. Same thing with Byakuya, he faces one of these Espada, so they have battles there, so that would make sense to have them there as characters. Now, obviously, they aren't like the most popular characters, the most popular Espada. You could easily take them out and then decrease the roster or just replace them and also decrease the roster. You could do that. That's fine. I just think they do play a big, not big, but like good enough role in the story that would make sense to have them there. Now, if we're looking on the left side, same kind of deal with the visors. I put like the main ones that would make sense to have there in base game. Like obviously Shinji has to be there. Obviously Hiyori has to be there. Obviously, well, Lisa, I don't know if that's like a controversial one or not. I don't know if she's controversial or not. I think she'd be cool there. Obviously, I think Lisa and also Kensei would be cool because obviously they help Ichigo train to control his visored mask and to be able to use it. Love, I think, would be just fun on base game. Also, Rose would be fun as well, and obviously that leaves Kuna. So those are the visors that I put in there. Now I know you're looking at the middle of the screen. Okay, yes, we do see Zangetsu at the end of I think the first like announcement trailer. I think you see like him pop up like and laugh. I could be wrong. I don't remember, but I think having him playable makes sense. There's like obviously a big fight scene between him and Ichigo deciding who is king of Zangetsu and who is master of the sword and stuff like that. I just think he'd have a cool moveset that would be like a good parallel with Ichigo. It'd be fun to play as him. I don't know if he's been playable before in other games, but it'd be fun. Notice I did not put the Yhwach version of Zangetsu. Only reason why I didn't do that is I just don't see that character as playable. I don't really know what you could do with that character to make him playable. With Zangetsu, that's a different story. I feel like Zangetsu, you could even do an awakening similar to Ichigo, where he has the mask. It's like literally just like a polar opposite. You could even do some fun awakening with him that maybe we haven't seen before in Bleach, but that would be just the polar opposite of Ichigo. That would be fun. And then obviously we have our first introduction of a double character. I do think Ichigo is going to get more than one character. This is the visored Ichigo. I just named it Ichigo number 2. This Ichigo I think you get in the Arrancar arc. I think this Ichigo has to be in this game. Why? Because I think base Ichigo can go up to his Bankai and then maybe reawaken into this mask, but half the mask. Now, why I say half of the mask is because there's a big distinction between him when he has half of the mask versus the full thing. When he has the full mask, he's always going like this and taking it up, on and off, and that at that point, that's in the Arrancar arc when he's actually controlled it, when the visors have helped him to control that so he can wield the mask, and the mask is full. It's not halfly. I think that reawakening that Ichigo would have in his base form would be that half mask. And we saw that in his character gameplay, by the way. So I think this full mask only makes sense to start him out with the full mask. Maybe like there's stuff that can happen where he's not, or maybe he just starts out in full Bankai mode and you can get the mask as a technique, or I don't know what it is. But his awakening then would make sense to be his Vasto Lorde transformation, with the full horns and everything like that. That would make the most sense for this character. This character would be a lot of fun, considering that you can add a moveset on top of that, already interesting moveset that we see for base Ichigo. Imagine how cooler this version of Ichigo is going to be. Obviously, he's going to be a must play. But this right here, that totals my base game roster. It's a good amount of characters. Again, it's a good amount of characters. I don't know whether or not they're going to make cuts like this. It's really tough it's gonna be really tough. I don't know, because they, I was making this list and looking at it. It is a tough task because there are so many important characters in Bleach. They could get rid of lieutenants and instead keep the roster a little bit more bogged down, or a little less large than this. They could do that if they wanted to, but I just think these are the main characters that sort of go through the story. And obviously you're wondering, well, the story doesn't end. Obviously in the Arrancar arc, we see more, Ichigo faces off against Ulquiorra, but that's not the end. There's more past that, and I know, and that's why we're getting into the DLC, and I'm going to go straight into the, DLC, and let's just see. Bam! That's the DLC, boy. All right, let me explain the DLC. Let me go into it by waves. And let me start from, I'll start from the right. So I have a different Aizen here. And if you notice, I actually have 2 Aizens. And let me explain. So it's similar to Ichigo. I think Aizen's going to have multiple awakenings, or just in general, multiple character sort of options. I think it makes sense for Aizen, considering that the end of the series, he technically has awakened like 3 times already. So right, so like we don't see his Bankai, but he's fused with the Hogyokyu. So to use the Hogyokyu as his awakenings only makes the most sense. And I think having a Rankar main or Rankar arc Aizen, full villain Aizen as a playable character, separate from the other Aizen, I think that makes sense. You know, it also fits with the whole like he was playing two personas type deal, and also you can use more of his Shikai here than in this form. And then obviously I have end of the series Aizen, which would be in the final wave of the DLC. And I think these are certain characters, like this character, I definitely do think, like, if we go straight onto the left side, we have Ichigo in his full final transformation. And I think that's a character that's super playable in the story. Whether or not he becomes playable as main roster, that's a question that the game devs are going to have to ask themselves. It kind of would be backwards not to have him as a playable, which is why it makes it tough, because that just means that your character roster is going to be big. Okay, you're just going to have to accept that. Because I don't know, unless you just literally stock up all these transformations or they do some weird mechanic with it. I don't know how they're going to do it. It only makes sense to have multiple versions of these characters playable in the game, because that's just how arena fighters do it anyways. Naruto has like 5 different versions of himself in the Storm games, so it only makes sense to do that, and it would make sense to have it playable in the story and then later on as DLC. That idea sucks, I know, don't get me wrong, I can hear the boos, I get it, that sucks to think about, but if they want to go that route, that is something that they could do. I put Ishin here on the left because why not? Who the heck, like, who doesn't want to play as Ishin? All right, I'm sorry. Okay, that's just one. And then I put Ryoken also. Who doesn't want to play as the dads? I'm just throw them as DLC. Let's have some fun here. And you know what's even funner? Let's have some fun. Let's put Urahara back in his Soul Society getup when he was captain. Why not, bro? If we're gonna have some fun, we're gonna have some fun. Let's do that. Let's put Urahara and Yoruichi when they were captains. Back when the flashback scenes, we could have those characters. And then maybe like a DLC story could be those flashback scenes where you have Aizen plotting to sort of turn these characters into visors and shit and stuff like that. So that would be cool. I just think they would also be cool characters to play as, like in their captain fit. I think would be tight. Obviously, I put more Espada here on the right side as DLC. Obviously, yeah, Barragan. Obviously, you have Halle Bell, and then I did include your boy Yamamoto. I felt like you gotta have Yamamoto in the game. I know he doesn't really play that much of a role in there, but even if it's DLC, I'll take it. I know base game it doesn't make sense to have him. It just doesn't, because he, like, if they were going up 1,000-Year Blood War, it would make sense. He has way more moves in there, but if we're going DLC, let's just throw him in there. Why not? He's a big powerhouse, and to have him as DLC makes sense. Now, these are the two that might be controversial, might not be. I don't know. Gin and Tosin in their Arankar fits. Now, the only one I understand if you're like upset about is Gin, considering that Gin doesn't. I don't know if he really changes that much, to be honest with you. When he goes to Arankar mode, I don't really, or the arc in the Arankar arc, I don't know that he changes that much. But I put him on there for guilty pleasure reasons. All right, I would love to play as Gin when he's like a villain, and then have him have a backstabbing ultimate or something like that. I don't know. It'd be tight. And then obviously Tosin makes the most sense to have like a second playable character, as considering that you could go into his awakening where he becomes all holified. So that makes sense. And then obviously other than Grimjow, I think this dude is pretty popular as an Espada. You have Stark. I think you gotta do this dude as DLC, bro. People will buy this. I wouldn't be mad. Listen, I wouldn't be mad if Stark, right, was main roster. Like, I would not be mad, okay? But I just feel like he's such a DLC character that like it's just so obvious. Like, do you want money or not? Like, it just makes the most sense, right? He's just one of those characters that's kind of obscure, but would make the most sense to have as DLC. And then obviously I put the last visored on the left. You have, what is it? I keep forgetting this boy's name. Hachigen, bro. I keep forgetting this boy's name. You got Hachigen. I don't know that he really fights that much other than when he fought Barragan, which if I'm putting Barragan as DLC, it would only make sense to put that other guy as DLC. Nell, I definitely put Nell. Notice that I put Nell when she's a kid because I think her awakening would be her. I don't know if I'm in actually the same boat as a lot of people in that sense. I do think having Nell in her kid form, maybe for like a little bit, would be a cool gimmick to have. You know what I mean? I feel like the obvious choice is to have her already transformed into her adult form when she was formerly an espada. I think that's obviously what they might most likely are going to do. But like having her as a kid and then have her awaken into that and then reawaken maybe again, that would be even funner. That would be cool. That would be fun. That would be interesting, especially considering that even let's say like she's not that strong of a character, right? And then when she awakens, it's like the boost is that much crazier. That would be cool. That would be fun. That would really fit the theme of like reversing the fate type deal that we're seeing in the trailers. And then obviously last character, I couldn't think of. Y'all let me know if this was the wrong pick, but I put Cone. I think the same argument could be said for Cone that I made for Nell. I think he could be a fun little gimmick character that you have. Obviously, if he needs to awaken, it could be into Ichigo's body, and then that's when he gets a boost up and things of that nature. I just think he's a gimmick character, but I also think he'd be a fun character. I don't see why not have gimmick characters in your game, and I think it'd be fun DLC to have. So that basically rounds out all of the characters that I have here for my plausible character roster for Bleach, Rebirth of Souls. Woo! It felt like I went through the whole gauntlet with this. All right, well, you guys let me know what you think about this character roster list. Do you guys agree with this? Do you not? I would definitely love to know. It's okay to have differing of opinions. There are certain characters that are gimmies, certain characters that are definitely going to be in the game, certain characters that might be iffy, and there's certain characters I might have just put here just for personal preference. You know what I'm saying? But you let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking about this character roster, what you're thinking about just in general, the character list that I have here. And yeah, that's going to do it for me for this character roster prediction. I'm excited for this game, man. I'm excited to just finally get my hands on it and play it. I'm excited to get like a roster on screen. Not obviously this is just a mock-up that I have here, but it's going to be exciting when we actually get our hands on the game and actually get to see which characters are playable and which characters are not, and how many character reveals and what they have up their sleeves that they have yet to reveal. But yeah, again, let me know what you guys think. Be sure to like and subscribe if you've seen thus far. I would appreciate it. Okay, start binge watching all my Bleach videos if you can. Share my content if you can. Let's get this channel growing, baby. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave in general as well. I'm bad at ending videos, so I'm just going to end it abruptly right here. Bye.